getting somewhat more liberal, but now we're seeing these far right-wing, ideologues being appointed, and they're all, they're all fans of each other, and they've not only taken this very right-wing approach to decision-making, but they've politicized things, and they've been more involved in politics than justices in the past have. So I think that's what's most frightening about it all. But they have been kind of developing those lines of arguments since Scalia got on the bench, certainly, if not before. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been some movement in Congress to enact legislation to, in essence, roll back the Citizens United case. Where do you see that Where do you see that going, if at all, actually producing legislation?
I think we need two things. Number one is we need to make certain that the private nonprofits and unions understand that this whole thing doesn't work, doesn't inure to our benefit as progressives. And I think most of them are there now, but they weren't necessarily at the time of the decision. If you Google Citizens United, you'll get a ton of things, but one of the things you can do is go to the Supreme Court record, and it'll show the decision, and it'll show everything that was filed in the case. I mean, it's, from my perspective, and I make my living working for labor unions for the most part, and representing union people, but it's embarrassing to see how pro-Citizens United these progressive organizations were, because they all had this need to do these things outside of the limitations of the regular campaign system. And I just don't think in the long run that's good for anybody. But that being said, I think we need that, and then we also need, we need two Democratic houses in Congress. And then I think we can get that rolled back to some degree. I think where the most effective rollback is going to be is when you start forcing them to identify who's giving what and having timetables on the independent expenditures that you do on campaigns. Because with that transparency, you're going to be able to out kind of some of those conservatives and what they're doing and what money's coming in from out of state or whatever. And I think that'll be probably the most effective rollback. Short of that, we either need a constitutional amendment or a new Supreme Court that's going to overturn portions of the decision. Yeah.
I heard recently that President Obama checked off the public financing thing on his income taxes, but I also remember that he turned down public financing when he ran. So, I mean, what is the point? I was kind of surprised to see.
I don't know, but I mean, the tragedy to all this is that we've now, because of Citizens United and other things, the cost of campaigning is so escalated that the public financing mechanisms put you at a huge economic disadvantage if you take it. And so the smart candidate doesn't do it anymore because it sends out signals to everybody else that you're going to lose. So, okay.
Is Citizens United, is that Huckabee? Who's associated with that? Is it Huckabee?
I don't know. It was the group that put out the movie about Hillary, the Real Story or whatever. I'm not sure who of the...
Very derogatory.
Yeah, it was...
And yet people seem to eat that up just because it's called Citizens United. And they want
well, that goes back to my thing, if you're for the future of children in Wisconsin, it means you're against public education, that's kind of how it works. So, okay.
If Scott Walker gets his way with everything going on right now, truly how big of a cut do you see coming to Badger care?
Senator Hansen could answer that better than I, but as I understand it, about half of the people who are currently eligible will no longer be eligible. Is that about right? Yeah.
It's a $500 million cut to MA, Badger care, and senior care. So
yeah.
It's not pretty.
Well, and I don't quite get this. So Bill and I were recently visiting one of our kids in California for a couple days, and that state didn't fare well after Proposition 13. You can talk about all the other things that went on, but oh my God, they needed to cut state government and spend less and do this and that and the other thing, and they did, and the state went downhill faster than any other state in America during the economic recession. So I don't know, why we think this is going to do something, but giving people who are among the working poor, especially who have no benefits, taking away Badger care is the most ludicrous thing ever in the world. I am a huge fan of that, so it's a good question. Yeah, that budget repair bill, I mean, my focus has been on, the evisceration of public employee bargaining rights, but some of the other things it does there in terms of young women accessing healthcare services, people getting, cancer checkups, Badger Care, Medicaid, what else? I think, is there something in there about Medicare even, I believe? This bill is just a nasty thing, and then the budget bill's even worse.
Yeah.
One more question, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the money, basically, where both Democrats and Republicans have tried to fight the same sort of campaign with a lot of TV advertising, which requires a lot of money.
Uh-huh.
Do you think one of the effects of this may be to oblige the Democratic Party to think about how you campaign directly to people in a way which, in a sense, bypasses the influence of money by developing a different method of communicating with the voter?
I think there's something to be said about that. I happen to be a dinosaur when it comes to political advocacy. I'm still convinced that, while I've always told my kids yard signs don't vote, people do. I do think sometimes that, campaign ads create votes and people don't always. I think we saw with the Obama campaign something a little bit unique, which was, one, there was incredible grassroots advocacy combined with some money expenditures, combined with use of kind of free media on the internet and whatever else I don't understand because I'm too old, okay? And those three things combined created a new type of campaign that almost merged, I think, some of the traditional grassroots kind of individual things together with the with kind of what's become the norm, the raising money stuff. I would love to see the Democratic Party get off the dime on the money stuff and try to do something more with creativity, public participation, and the like. But if that kind of, tragically, if that kind of thing worked, there'd be a whole bunch of private companies that wouldn't be buying ads but would be marketing in different ways. Now, in a sense, some companies have that. And I think, trying to figure out how to take new world opportunities, old world mechanisms and values and combine them with a means by which you could raise money in a more moderate, less focused just on money way would be ideal. I mean, I'm still upset that they've quit serving food at fundraisers. I don't know about any of you, but in this, I don't mean that in a glib way or in a way to minimize your question, but my husband and I do a lot of fundraisers in Fond du Lac, and I've had the good opportunity to be at a number of fundraisers here at Nancy Nussbaum's house. And you know what? You get a lot of people to go because they like the food and they like standing over something, chatting with people about politics. And it energizes them and it gets them involved. And yet if you talk to people who help plan campaigns, who are in the know, as Dave well knows, they'll be like, well, why are you serving all that food? We would need that $100 for ads, or whatever. And it's sort of like, well, I got 6 people who really want to bring food, and I really want to cook today, because this is my way to get to cook for more people than just the 2 of us. But, that just came out. There was a book, Scott, the guy who does I know there are a lot of public radio listeners here, the Saturday morning dude on public radio, Scott Simon. He has a book out called Windy City, and I've read 2 reviews and heard one. I haven't read the book yet, but it's kind of a novel about Chicago politics. But one of the things, one of the Wisconsin public radio people said to him was, a lot of your book has to do with restaurants in Chicago and eating at various people's houses. And he said, yeah, because we've lost that in politics in Chicago, and that's how things got done, and that's how we got people out to the polls. Now, I'm not saying that your question necessarily says, do we need more food at fundraisers? But I think that in an overly simplistic sense, we do. And we do need to find ways to get people involved by doing just that. And frankly, we're doing that societally all over the place. Low-income schools, some of the SAGE schools and stuff, one of the things they're encouraging is that when you have parent-teacher nights, that you have a place for the kids to stay, and my principal in the audience is shaking his head, and you have hot dogs and baked beans and something for the kids to eat and the parents to eat, because they're more likely to come if they can get a free meal. And, you know, I'm sorry, but we need to be reaching out and touching people in their lives. You know, we need a place with hot dogs and baked beans so that every person losing Badger care understands it. Because a lot of people losing Badger care think that politics is for a bunch of rich people and they're all jerks. And, you know, when they meet Dave, they realize, you know, I'm not going to ask his wife, but we know he's not a rich person and he's not a jerk for the most part, right? No. Yeah, I don't know what happens with you. Yeah, anyway, no. But, no, but I mean, you know, and then they realize it's like, oh, this is Dave Hansen, oh, I'll vote for him. But nobody realizes that. And then you have to hope that the ad he has on, which is a really great ad, and I think does portray you as not being a rich person nor a jerk. But it's, you know, it's kind of one of these things though where is that how our message is most effectively getting out? And don't too many people just turn that off because they've heard it too many times. And then they hear the other cracks, you know, saying, but no, Dave Hansen is a jerk. And, you know, I mean, but it's just, it's silly. It's silly, it's silly. So I would love to see that we change, yeah.